Hey, welcome back to the Retail Initiative podcast. Today, what I want to share with you is my 5 favorite books that I think every retailer needs to read. The way that you invest in yourself is honestly one of the most important things that you can work on. A lot of times, we want to get to the next level, we want to grow, we want to get there, and we think that we're just going to figure it out. And a lot of times, yes, we probably can. It's going to take a long time, but we're going to be able to figure it out with a lot of trial and error. But instead, what if we could learn from the people who've been there before, learn from their wins, learn from their mistakes, learn what they would do differently? And I think there's some things that we can pull from people, like where we can adopt their mindset and their approach to business. And I think some of those things are really challenging to adopt on your own. And so if you are the type to read books or listen to books, these are amazing resources. What I love to do, and I've even done an episode on it, is talk about the way that I read books. And I typically have a few going on at once, and they serve a different purpose. Like in the morning, I tend to rotate through these staple books that I read again and again and again. And then I'll be reading a tactical book or a new book around whatever. And then in the evenings, I love to read biographies and get into stories of people that inspire me. Sometimes they're business people, sometimes they're political, sometimes they're just awesome historical figures. But it's something that I love to do because then I can really learn from them, but I'm also not getting all these ideas for my business and trying to go to bed at the same time, because that doesn't work. It's challenging, and I'm sure you've been there before. So let's get to the 5 books that I think every single retailer needs to have in their library, needs to have in their Audible account, needs to be reading. So number 1, and actually these are in no particular order, I just had to pick an order to go in, but number 1 is Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. He's the founder of Zappos.com. And in this book, there's really 2 things that you're going to learn that are incredible. One is his story of starting Zappos. If you think about when he started, the idea of selling shoes online was absurd. Everyone's just there's no way that you could do shoes online. People need to try them on. Your returns are going to be out of control. And he did it anyway. And I think a lot of us face challenges and things that we're that's absurd. There's no way that could work. But it can, just we haven't figured out how to do it yet. And he is an amazing example of that. And then 2, Delivering Happiness, the whole idea of a customer-centric business. The way he's put his customers first in everything was unreal. And yes, they ended up being acquired by Amazon, but they've kept their culture. And that actually is another bit that you'll learn is the culture that he built at Zappos. And a lot of times the things that we want to do, and when we're trying to get to the next level, if you can fix the culture and you can fix the way the team operates, that could unlock this new level for your business. Number 2, and this has been my most recent read, and it probably is one of the best books I've read in years, and it is 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. If you don't know Dan Sullivan, the guy's been around forever, and he's one of the most influential business leaders out there. And the idea behind it is, there's 2 mindsets that we can approach business. There's a 10X mindset, trying to grow times 10, and then there's 2X mindset, which is improvement. We're just trying to grow a little bit. And he talks about the fact that, if when we look at a 2X mindset, how can we improve our business? It generally is nuanced. There's 1,000 ways to do it. We really can do exactly what we're doing now, but just more of it. We do exactly what we're doing now, but we just do more of it. But if we were to ask ourselves, if we needed to grow times 10, whether it be we need to grow our business revenue by 10, we need to increase our clients' results by 10, we need to increase our client satisfaction by 10, we need to increase our marriage 10 times. If we start to ask ourselves that question, it's much less nuance. The path to get there likely is not 1,000 things, it's 1 or 2 things. It's 1 or 2 things that are going to get to that serious level of growth. And all the details that we get caught up in become obvious. Should I do my own photos for my site? Well, what happens if it's going to sell in store before it sells online? We wasted all that time. Those kind of questions are improvement questions. They are not, how do we really scale up? How do we really get to where I want my business to go? And so when we approach our business in this way, we avoid getting caught in the details, in the details that hold us back. And he talks a lot about the 80-20 rule, that it's likely that 20% of your time produces 80% of your results. And so to get to that next level, to get to the 10x level that he talks about, we have to find a way to focus on the 20% as our 100%. We need to make that all that we do and then create systems and delegate the other pieces. And this book, if you leave today and you read one, that's the one to read. You pair that with the other books in this series. There's two. They're not a part of this list, but one is Who Not How, which is all about, instead of trying to figure out how to do everything, figure out who you can partner with, who could do it for you, because it's likely that their skill set is what can get you to the next level rather than you just figuring everything out. And then the other one is The Gap and the Gain, which is phenomenal. It's the idea that, there's the gap when we're looking out on the horizon and we're seeing who we want to be, and we're constantly comparing ourselves against the horizon and this idea of who we could be, rather than looking back at your starting point and seeing how far you've come. So this series together is essential because, trying to grow times 10 when you're comparing yourself against this hypothetical future version will be demoralizing and impossible. And if we're not asking ourselves who rather than how, it's going to just be a mess. And so that series has been so valuable for me and for a ton of other people. All right, so Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. The next is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Phil Knight's the founder of Nike, and this is his memoir where he walks through the story of Nike. They are a phenomenal business, and they have a fascinating story where, he has had to pivot and adapt at so many stages of his business, and the challenges they faced were unreal. And despite what they are today, they were not started as this super funded, rich company. They were on a shoestring budget, and they grew out of that. And they opened retail stores and all of these incredible things. And as a retailer, you can read really a mindset, an approach of how he approached these challenges and created Nike, what it is today, but it didn't start that way. And I think a lot of us, we look at the end result and we don't think about the challenges they faced early on. And Shoe Dog, beyond the inspiration, it's just a good book, like really good. So it's definitely one I would recommend. Next is Radical Candor by Kim Scott. If you are trying to grow, there's likely a leadership gap that needs to happen. We need to level up in the way that we can grow, that we can lead our team, because the way that we lead our team is one of the most important things about our business. And so the idea behind Radical Candor is the way that we lead our team. And she has this like cross-section idea, which is, caring personally, really caring about your team, and challenging directly. If you've ever faced this challenge of, you're too nice, you're a pushover, and your team doesn't respect you, or like, no one does what I say, and I'm doing this, and I'm telling them this, but no one's listening to me. This book is amazing for that. Because the idea is, if you care personally, but you don't challenge directly, she calls that ruinous empathy, where you're empathizing with your team, but it is to your ruin and theirs. They are not going to get to that next level because you aren't pushing them, and they are not going to be productive employees because you're constantly dealing with every situation like, yeah, that makes sense, rather than like, hey, there's a role to do, and we need to do that. And so we want to care personally, and then there's the other end, where you're challenging directly, but you're not caring personally, and she calls that obnoxious aggression. And it's this awful thing where you're just constantly eating at your employees and not caring about who they are. But when you mix caring personally and challenging directly in one, that's where Radical Candor comes in. And that's where you have profound change in your team members and in yourself and in your business. So Radical Candor by Kim Scott. If leadership is something you're wanting to grow in, that is incredible. Also, I would say anything, literally any book by John Maxwell is phenomenal at developing your leadership skills. And the last one is Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson's one of the most influential people in my career, and this book is phenomenal because he outlines some tactics that are honestly already relatively outdated through Pinterest and through Instagram and through Facebook. But the bigger idea behind it is the framework that we can approach any social media channel, where we can look at the history of the platform, what the intention is, like their current goal, and then we can build our marketing around their goal on the platform. And so he teaches it through the tactics at that time, but you walk away understanding, how do you approach Instagram today? How do you approach TikTok today, or Pinterest or whatever? And it is an incredibly valuable book for driving traffic to your store. So again, that's Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson. So again, the list. And there are 5 books that I could not recommend more, especially for a retail community. Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. 10X is Easier Than 2X by Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan. Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson. They're all good Audible books. Actually, Traffic Secrets, you probably need to get the physical copy. But the rest are good Audible books or physical reads. I hope that these are helpful to you and serve you well. And I cannot wait to see you next time.